Welcome back into Straight from the Pitch. I'm Anna Whitty, joined as always by Scotty Schweitzer. Today's podcast, we have an exciting guest. We have Portland Thorns midfielder Sam Coffey to talk about her youth game, her time in college, of course, her journey to the professional game. We definitely got to know her and her background as well, just a little bit more. So make sure to stay tuned. That's first up. And then, of course, we get into the Julie Ertz and Sam Coffey matchup that happened this past weekend, some MLS news, and a Yellow Penny Award. Good stuff on today's episode, but first up, we got Sam Coffey. We are joined by NWSL Champion, Portland Thorns midfielder, and one of Straight from the Pitch's favorite players to watch. It's Sam Coffey. Sam, thank you so much for joining the show. We want to kind of get to know you off the field as well, and want to start from kind of your family. And I know that you've talked about your dad. He's a sports writer, how he's influenced you. How has he kind of made an impact with what he does for a living on you as an athlete and as a competitor?
Yeah, he's been a sports writer for, probably at this point, like 40 something years. So I guess just growing up in a family that revolves around sports and loves sports. I mean, he was the type of guy that just like knew every stat about everyone. And if I had any questions about what seemed like the most random sports, like I have memories watching the Winter Olympics and like asking questions about curling or bobsled, and like he somehow has the answer. So he was just like that kind of dude. But yeah, he's obviously one, just being my father, and has just had such a tremendous influence on me in terms of my love of sport, my love of soccer. And I think him and I have grown together in I think his love for soccer has grown as mine has. And the more I've kind of gotten, as I got more and more competitive with it growing up, I think he then took more of an interest in it. I think in his childhood, it wasn't really the main sport that he would play or even in his early career write about. But now obviously he did Carly Lloyd's book and just finished Bryce Curry's book. So he's definitely venturing into that world more as well too. So it's cool to see his love of soccer growing as well. But yeah, just like growing up in a sports centered family was super fun. And now in one way or another, we're all involved in it. So his influence on us has definitely been amazing, and the apples don't fall far from the tree.
I'm from New Jersey originally,
Okay.
and I left New Jersey to play into New York. You are from New York, but came down to Match Fit Academy to play in New Jersey. What determined that move, and why did you come into New Jersey to play instead of staying in the New York area?
Yeah, I played for a couple different clubs in Jersey, actually, just like from ages like 10 to the time I was in high school and went to Match Fit. I played at World Class for a bit, which is like borderline New Jersey, New York. So that one was pretty close. But then played for New Jersey Stallions, which was like Bergen County area. And then, yeah, my last year and a half of club soccer, I moved to Match Fit. I played up a year at a small club called New York Soccer Club, just in Westchester, New York, where I'm from. And, had a great experience there. But unfortunately, my teammates then left for college. And so I kind of was in need of just a really competitive team and a good league. And that was actually my first experience playing in the ECNL. So it was really late. So I think my path was a little untraditional in that way. But yeah, it was about probably toward the end of my junior year of high school, I would say. Decided it was time for me to step away from New York Soccer Club and was looking for other options. And I knew Match Fit was kind of just close enough, but super competitive. I had a bunch of friends from New Jersey Stallions and clubs before that had played there and loved their experience and loved the coaching and, the training that they got. And obviously it's in such a competitive league. And I wanted, I think it's easy for players before, they're committed and before they go off to college to kind of taper off, but I wanted to just like ramp it up as much as I could. And I definitely got that in going to Match Fit. So the commute was not fun. Traffic, rush hour, crossing the then Tappan Zee Bridge was not a good time. But, senior year, you don't really need to do homework. So but yeah, I had a great experience there. And
Did by any chance was Dom your coach?
yeah, he was. Well, he
I
was
went
one of them. Yeah, we had Jordan Raper and Dom, kind of like tag team our age group. And yeah, we had a really fun team. I really enjoyed my time there. Got to dabble in the ECNL a bit, which I was really grateful for.
I went to high school with Dom.
Oh, small world. That's hilarious.
He is one of my favorite players I ever played with.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if he ever got on the field and played. He got hurt his senior year in high school.
Okay.
In his ACL back when it wasn't good to do your ACL.
Yeah.
But
I
he
don't know if
was
it's good
one
still,
of the
but
most talented players I've ever played with in my entire life.
all right, you'll have to send him that clip.
He'll love it. Yeah, he'll eat that up.
That's funny.
I mean, your junior year is kind of uncharacteristic to get into ECNL play and to start ramping up your career. So how do you feel like Match Fit set you up for your collegiate career and also obviously your professional career now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like I just, like I was like, oh, I'm going to college soon. I got to start, like ramping it up at this point. I felt, I mean, I got great. I was on a great team at New York Soccer Club, great playing against other great teams. I owe so much of my development to them and to the coaches I had there, and the teammates that I had as well. So, I think every kind of unique part of my journey is super intentional and super, I think it was meant to be that way. Obviously, playing for a smaller club led me to a little bit of like less exposure in terms of collegiate coaches and, at first committing to BC and then transferring. So there were all sorts of different factors that kind of came as a result of club soccer. But yeah, I mean, again, the training and the development I got at Match Fit, I think was super invaluable to me in going and playing at the next level. I think just like the intensity of training and the travel even that the ECNL required and just the caliber of teams that you would play in that league, I think was super, super amazing. And, one, I know that's still huge for girls developing today. But I do think that final year of just that intense of a level was really formative for me, and kind of both going to youth national teams at that time and then also preparing me for my freshman year. So I'm really grateful for everyone over there at Match Fit, the teammates I had, coaches I had. And, I'm bummed I only got, a year and a half or two there. But I do think it was super helpful for me in preparing for college soccer.
You said about your journey, and I agree. I think every player's journey is their own, and they have to follow these paths, and there's ups and downs. If you had the opportunity to go back now as the pro that you are, and I would have to say, I don't know if you've watched our show, but we are super huge fans of you, your style of play, the way you play the game, how it's team oriented. It's about winning the game and doing whatever is necessary to win, even if it's not maybe necessary, maybe not the best thing for you. But if you could go back as the person you are now, the pro that's made it, who's got a career ahead of them that's going to just keep reaching new limits, what would you tell the younger version of you about how to get to this point, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change a single thing. I think, I obviously wish selfishly I had more time at Penn State just because it's a wonderful place. But I do think my experience at BC, I am really grateful for. I think I needed to go there first. I think I needed to meet the people I met there and have some of the coaching experiences I had there before moving on to Penn State. I am a firm believer in things happening for a reason, and kind of each chapter of our stories being super formative in like the development and formation of who we are. And I think for me, that's both on and off the field, as you just alluded to. I mean, if what I would tell myself, I think I'm like, there's so many things I would tell myself, but I guess like a big theme for me right now in the season I'm in that I would just continue to reiterate to my younger self is just like to trust the process. I think there were many times where I felt, discouraged, and even, as a player, a youth player, like at a small club, not getting a ton of exposure to like bigger colleges, and, I was not a heavily recruited young player. Like I really for so long felt overlooked. I didn't really get called up to a youth national team till I was like 17, 16 maybe. So like pretty late when you think about some other players' journeys. But I think for me, I look back on those things and I know that they served me in such cool ways. And whether they were good or bad, I'm not kind of putting this sugarcoat all over it of like, it was all wonderful and I'm so grateful for all of it. Some of it just was plain old hard. But I do think it all had an amazing influence on me in my both player development and character development. And yeah, I think I would just remind myself to trust the process and that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And it's kind of up to you how you view where you are in a certain season and how you view the process of things becoming to be. And it's easy to want to rush that or be somewhere else, or maybe not be happy with where you are in a certain moment. You know, I remember feeling a lot of that in transferring and being overwhelmed and like, why is this happening? And it feeling scary and all of it. And I mean, I just gained so much from that experience, both of going to BC first and then obviously in transferring to Penn State. So I think there is so much beauty and learning and development, both as a person and player, that does happen in trusting the process and appreciating the journey and the ebbs and flows to it, instead of kind of like wishing some of the difficulty or the challenges away. Instead being just grateful for all of it and what it's teaching you. Because at the end of the day, it's just like all information, all something we can learn from and find joy in at the end of the day. So
yeah, I feel like your career is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And everything that you've gone through will likely and probably help out people underneath you and coming up through the system as well. So, but of course you mentioned Penn State. Clearly, I guess on my left here, I'm a huge Penn State fan and I loved my experience there. I would go back and like do it 10 times over. So I'm curious, you played 2 seasons at BC and you mentioned that Coach Don Buck called you and contacted you. What in that conversation led you into making the move to playing in State College?
If I'm being completely honest, I don't even remember what she said to me. I think I like just blacked out. Like I just saw that she had emailed me and I obviously knew who she was and her reputation. And yeah, I mean, is just a coaching legend. And so seeing her name pop up in my inbox, I was like, okay, this is legit. I might be done. So I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, we have a call and I don't know, even just like from the get-go, I obviously don't remember like the exact details of the call, but I just felt like we clicked and we connected, and I didn't know her, but I respected the hell out of her, and knew that she was someone who would just like push me in ways I hadn't been pushed, and just is someone who I think does such an amazing job of both like demanding excellence and bringing out the best in you while also like nourishing both player and person. And I think to find a coach that can do both, that you know that even in the hard moments, even in losses, even in, you know, tournament, like NCAA tournament eliminations, like all of it, that they just care so deeply for who you are off the field instead of just like what you bring as a soccer player. And so yeah, I mean, seeing that she wanted to connect, I was like, yeah. And so, you know, we had a call and scheduled a visit, and it was the only school I went to go see. And after my visit, you know, I went back, and, you know, of course, when you're transferring, it's always a gamble. Like I definitely went to Penn State and felt like I felt something click in me. It felt right. It felt like a place I could call home. But of course, you know, like I'm so overwhelmed. It's like finals week in Boston. I'm doing the trip in a day. It was just chaos. So of course, you know, I have doubt in me of like, what am I doing? Is this the right thing? I don't know. But like this place seems pretty freaking amazing. And I think what captivated me most about my visit was just a conversation with Coach. I remember just like in her office. And she just like asked me what my goals were. And not just, you know, from a team standpoint, but my personal goals, like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, like where do I want to be? What am I looking for? Like, why am I doing this? And I think so much of that transfer for me was wanting to get out of my comfort zone, wanting to be pushed, wanting to be tested, wanting to be developed, both as player and person, wanting to be a part of a program that was just bigger than myself, and where I could lead and just grow at the end of the day. Like, I think even just talking about Match Fit and New York Soccer Club and all of it, like if I'm not growing along the way, that I'm not in it for the right reasons, or I'm not doing the right thing. If I'm just stagnant and comfortable and like just going through the motions, then I'm not doing it right. And so it felt right just being there. And yeah, like I said, I didn't go and tour anywhere else. I had a couple other schools kind of like on my list, but it was pretty clear to me from the get-go that Penn State was going to be where I went next. And within my first, I would literally say like 72 hours there, I knew that it was the right decision. And I knew it was not only that it was the right decision, but that it was going to change my life. And it did.
So when you were at BC, you were a 10, scoring goals, getting assists, and now you've transitioned back to the 6 role.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is to you, as a player that I feel like if I played as a 10 myself, I could have got a lot of personal accolades. But I played center back as a player because it was the best position for me to help the team win.
Mm-hmm.
For you, transitioning back to the 6, has that been easy? Do you like it? Do you think you're still a 10? Do you ever want to be the 10? Like when I watch you play, and this is not just because you're on, because I've said it before, but I feel that you are the most complete player in the NWSL. And me and Anna were talking before you came on, was if you had to start a team, if I had to start a franchise from scratch, and we both said we'd pick you. You'd be the number 1 and then build a team around you, just because of the way you play. You take free kicks, you hold down the middle, you keep everything in control. But as a player, sometimes it's nice to get our name in the paper too. And the 10 gets their name in the paper a lot more than the 6, even though I think around the world, we all know that the 6 wins us games.
Yeah.
The Luka Modric's, the great 6s, the Casemiro's changed Man United overnight. Just they brought a different 6 in with a different personality. So for you, transitioning, was that an easy transition, or was it something that just kind of made sense to you?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I appreciate all the kind words. Yeah, I guess college 10, loved just playmaking, attacking. Obviously, I still love that. Like, that's so fun. I still do it. It just looks different. And I think I have never felt more complete as a player, most myself on the field than I do as a 6. And I think that if you said that to me like 2 years ago, I would have laughed in your face, because our COVID spring season, we were just riddled with injuries at Penn State, and I did have to move back. Like I had to play 6, and I was just like furious about it. And obviously I did it. Like I wouldn't, just show up and complain, but I was a natural 10. Like I want to be up there. I want to be creating, scoring goals, assisting. And it was just kind of the reality of the situation. Like I just had to be a deeper line midfielder. I remember I used to like show up for games, and I would do film with Ann Cook, one of our assistants, before every game. And she would kind of like give me a decimal for how high up I could go in that game. So like if they were a team that just countered like crazy, I was like a strict 6. But if they were kind of like park the bus a little bit, I could be like a 6.8 or a 7.2. Like she would give me a decimal for how to gauge how high up the field I could pretty much go. And that was the reality of that spring season. But even that experience, I think, just planted such important seeds in me of what was to come. And, that's when I talk about things happening for a reason, and just finding intention and meaning in things. I look back on that experience and I'm like, I didn't love that in the moment. I didn't love being so far from goal in my college senior year, but that, whether I realized it or not, like that was preparing me for what was going to come a year later. Because a year later, I was going to be a 6 on the national team, and I had no idea, So I think that is so cool to reflect on. But to answer your question, I loved playing 10, but I feel like being a 6 it has allowed me to find the most complete version of myself as a soccer player and as a person. So you talk about, name in the paper and scoring goals and all of it. And again, I love all that. But I'm not one that needs like spotlight. I don't need it to be about me. I don't need the accolades or the praise. Like I kind of love being the silent assassin in a way, where you are in a position that is so important to a team, to its rhythm, to its fluidity, to its defensive shape, to, you're a linchpin, and I think that is so cool, because you can have influence all over the field, and sometimes it's overlooked. And that's okay. Like, I actually think that's one of my favorite parts about it is like, sometimes I'm not noticed. If I'm not noticed, sometimes that means I'm doing my job really well. Um, and so there's something about like the discreetness and the simplicity of the six of 1-2 touch soccer, of just doing things right and clean instead of overcomplicating it, of focusing on the details um, and just kind of really being like smack center in the center of the park. Like everything else kind of is just like around you, and you have the ability to positively impact like all these different positions and people around you. Um, I kind of view it as like a quarterback in a way, and I love it. Like I really feel the most myself that I've felt as a soccer player in this role. And so as much as I do miss being up there, combining and scoring goals, assisting, um, there's nothing that I did as a 10 that I still can't do other than like needing to really defend because I didn't do that much, especially in the beginning of my college career. But I think I have like I reflect on my college career and I think about all these different tools that I was given and things I experienced that now I get to like put into this beautiful like ball and combine into now what my role is. Like I can bring my creativity as a 10. I can bring that, those experiences I had as a 6 at Penn State. I can bring the fluidity of an 8, connecting lines, breaking lines, line breaking passes. Like it can all form into one in this role. And I think, some of the aspects of it being a role that's not talked about all the time, but like the impact that it can have. You talk about Casemiro, Enzo Fernandez is one I love to watch right now. Like they are pivotal to their team's rhythm, to their team's success, to the way, like to the style of soccer that their clubs play. And they're not the first to be talked about. And I think that that's pretty awesome.
You mentioned that you're playing more defense than you did when you were in the 10. Who has helped you kind of transition and really help out the small details that you need to be a good defender?
Yeah, that was definitely a journey. I really did not defend. Like, I really didn't defend at all at BC. Like, it wasn't my thing. It wasn't my focus. I was focused on putting the ball in the back of the net and assisting other people. And I'd like maybe scream their 6 a time or two. But when I got to Penn State, they were like, you're half a player right now. I was like, you're right. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go there. They were going to be real with me. They were going to challenge me. They weren't going to just like let me be comfortable, be in my bubble. I like to think I've never been a player that like I've never had obviously all athletes have an ego to some degree, but like I've really tried to remain like humble and driven and motivated my whole career. Like I've never had an issue with just wanting to be the best and being hungry and never settling. And I think that aligns so much with like the values and the pillars of Penn State. And I credit my now ability to defend to them, because it was not fun at first. We went through the 1v1 defending principles and getting it down and slowing my feet and all the good stuff. And then I called them up beginning of NWSL preseason, and I'm like, they're put me in the 6, and they laughed for a bit. And now I think we're past the laughing. But I mean, that's a credit to the development I got there. Like I came in as kind of half of a soccer player, and then they added this massive piece. And, it's still, I think for me, a part that, day by day it's coming, like it is getting better, I think, every game. But it definitely, like for me, being on the ball is what comes most naturally to me. But they gave me skills now that are allowing me to become this complete player. And again, I think they're getting better every day, and I'm doing my best to improve on them every game we go out and every training. But it definitely was not something that was always there. And so I totally credit the staff at Penn State for helping me with that. And it's definitely something they would laugh at and joke at with me.
When you were coming up as a young player, was there a player that you looked up to that you wanted to be like, that you wanted to play like? Because in the game now, if you go back, and I coach youth, if you come back now to the youth, if you said, who's your favorite player, there's the Ronaldos and the Messis, but they're also, and maybe not so much Messi, but more sometimes I feel with Ronaldo, the players that they pick are also, to me, not the best role models.
Yeah.
So like you saying that you're always staying humble and hungry and always trying to be driven to be better and better, that I obviously is parenting and stuff like that. But usually a player has a player that they looked up to when they were coming along, that kind of, they like, I want to emulate that player. I want to be like that player that's all about the team kind of a thing. Was there a player like that? Or
Yeah, I think it's funny you say that, even just about like influence. I spend a lot of time with my chaplain's family here in Portland, and I'll sometimes go to her kids' games, and like the celebrations some of these little kids will do like in front of each other because they've seen it on TV, or like the Premier League guys doing it, is ridiculous. Like they'll do the Holland like meditating, or they'll like do the Sue on each other. I'm like, you are 7 years old and you're mimicking, a Ronaldo, right? Who maybe isn't human of the year, but yeah, I mean, I obviously had like my soccer idols, I would say, that like I just love to watch. I think growing up, for me, like soccer wise, I love watching Eden Hazard. I know he's not so much in his prime anymore, but in his prime, he was just so fun to watch. But I think it's a great question. Like as a young player, like I really, really looked up to Christine Lilly. Still do, obviously. But captain of the women's national team, I think still has the most caps ever. But I think she is someone for me that was just a workhorse, was super team first. I think I just admired like her work ethic, and the way she played obviously is a huge part of it. But really just her character and her outlook on being the best and training to be the best every single day. And I think that for me at a young age was something that really stood out to me, as someone who's already at the top, that they are still striving and pushing and so motivated to continue to be the best and want the best for their team. I would definitely say she comes to mind first as both character and player, someone I look up to.
In anything you do in life, especially when you're starting out and you do have such a high ceiling, everyone needs a mentor and someone to speak into their life, or somebody to go to advice. So for you and where you're at in your career and where you're projected to go, who's that person that you go to ask for soccer advice, and even to ask the small questions that you might not think are like silly or whatever, but they're there to really help you? Who's that person for you?
Yeah, I've been so blessed. Like I feel like I have a real community of people that, one, I just feel like have poured into me in such amazing and beautiful ways, that have supported me. I love to just like stay connected, even from people that I maybe cross paths with. Like, I mean, I still talk to literally like my maybe U6 coach
Good for
from Sleepy
you.
Hollow, who, obviously he may not be the first person I go to for soccer advice, but he checks in, he sends me photos of his grandkids, and like, just staying in touch, I think, with people who have impacted you along the way is such a cool thing. And yeah, just to like not forget where you came from and the parts of your journey that are so important, that I think we tend to maybe like forget or shut out, or you're just focused on where you are. Like, I do think it's important to carry those things with you. I mean, obviously we have such a tremendous staff here in Portland. And I think so many of our staff members serve as mentors to me, whether it's just like bringing in a clip after training, or asking about, like something I can improve on, or doing extras after practice. But I mean, if I were to say like, yeah, like my soccer person, I would definitely say Penn State staff. I would say Coach Erica and Nan and Kara and Tim, and just the staff there have been there for me through thick and thin. And I know that I could call them in the middle of the night if I needed to here, maybe asking about a certain formation or something I did, and that they would pick up the phone and just help me with whatever it is that I need. And yeah, I miss them tremendously, but I would definitely say that they are my people, and that they have my back. And I think they were just a part of such a formative season of my life. And I think then in graduating and having kind of the first year in the league that I had, and now continuing to have season this year, like I think it's been cool for them to see too. Like, again, I think if you told them that I was going to be an NWSL 6, that they wouldn't have believed you. But I think the staff there and the experience there, and obviously, Anna, you can relate to it, like it is unlike, I think, any other place in college soccer. And again, they are just a staff and a program that is so centered around player and person, and just bringing out the best in everyone. And sometimes like that doesn't have to do with soccer. It doesn't mean they're going to have a future in soccer. It doesn't mean they're going to be a 90-minute player. It's like, what does being the best version of this person mean, and how can we best help them and best serve them? And when they leave here, how can they be that? And man, their success rate's like out of this world. So I just feel so grateful to have been a part of that, to even then had the extra COVID year. I think that was just a blessing in disguise in many ways too. So yeah, I'll definitely say that.
Do you, like when I played, I like the way my socks feel. So I always had my own socks, team socks, and the trainers would give them to me and I would take care of them, bring them to games. They brought my shorts and shirt and everything, but I always had my own socks, and that was my little thing. Do you have any like superstitions that you have to take care of before a game, or is it just kind of?
I'm really like, I'm not superstitious at all. I'm actually pretty against superstitions. I hate to say it. I don't know, not against them. Like for me, they don't work for me. I think for me, it feels like I have to rely on something to be my best and to like do what I know I can do. And for me, that's just not the case. I totally understand like I got to do this, so I can do this. But I think for me, it's just like being in a good headspace. I mean, I have my pregame routine and whatnot. Like I usually go on a walk on game days and, go to like a different coffee shop or whatever it is. Cause those are long days. Like you play at 7:30 and you have the whole day just to think about playing soccer later that night. So, yeah, I don't have many. I'm sure that's not the answer you were looking for. I do wear like two socks.
No,
I mean, if that's a thing, like.
So like, I think my superstition was also a routine. Like getting my socks, washing them the night before, like thinking about the game. So like if you're going on a walk and doing those are things that trigger things. I think sometimes superstition is like, you got to I don't know, touch your locker 3 times, something like that. It was more like, because there's things that do you follow a routine to get yourself game time. It's like the whole day transpires like this. I kind of go through my patterns. I take a nap. I get breakfast.
I think routine is definitely like. Obviously just being an athlete too, like just a huge part of your career. I think for me, like what I would think of the most is just like during the national anthem, that is a space I always take to just like close my eyes, focus on my breath, really just like listen to the music and just be grateful. Like, I think that is like a very centering moment for me. Pre-game, I always do it. I've done it throughout college where I just like, usually for me, I will say a prayer to just like come back to the moment I'm in, the gift that it is to play, the gift that it is to be out here with my teammates and to do what I love most and to grow on this day. And no matter what happens, no matter what the result is, like you're always going to learn and get better from whatever game that you play, whether it kind of goes your way or it doesn't. And so I think for me, that is the thing that sticks out the most in terms of what I do every single game day. As part of my routine is just like taking those moments before we step out there during the anthem.
You might not have any superstitions or anything like specific, but one thing we did notice, Sam, is you always tuck in your shirt and you always have a white scrunchie in. Very similar to Denise O'Sullivan. She does the tuck in shirt too. And Scotty and I like to break that down and talk about like different players in different leagues and why they do such. So Sam, why? I think you did it in college too. I remember the white scrunchie.
Yeah, the white scrunchie I had in college, it's been a thing. I don't know. I wore it at BC, like it's been a while. So I think just for me, it's like, just keeping it going.
Is it one white scrunchie? Do you have multiple?
It's one. Yeah, it's one.
Okay.
I just like it. I think honestly, at this point too, like it helps my parents pick me out on the field when they like can't see very well. I don't know. So they're like, "Oh, I'll just find you." I'm like, "All right, that's good." So that's one reason too, I guess. But yeah, it's just kind of been something I've done for a while. So just holding on to that. And then the tuck, I kind of get asked that a lot. And I don't think it's for any, like, I didn't just have this like moment, I think, where I'm like, I'm just going to do this. I think though, for me, it is fitting for like my personality. And, I actually kind of did have like a semi moment, I guess, when we actually played LA last year. And it was me, I had actually just got back from my first camp when I was on like the pre-camp for World Cup qualifying. And I had just flown back to LA to join my team there. And I think I'd like just gone to the bathroom and then like my shirt was tucked, like just whatever after the bathroom. And I like looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I think this could work. So I literally just like kept it tucked in. And I kind of had a moment of like, okay, kind of like just had this experience. It was amazing. I'm so grateful. Like it was just a taste, I think, of what is to come and of these dreams I've had, and I've worked so hard for it. And, I've had so many people pour themselves into me to get here, and I just want to get to work and have fun with it. And I think, Anna, like blue collar is one of the pillars at Penn State. And I think that that's one that I really pride myself on. Like, roll up your sleeves, tuck in your shirt, let's get to work. It's not always pretty. Again, the 6 isn't going to always be a role that's recognized or on the front page, or, the one that's kind of coveted the most, but it is one that's takes a whole lot of grit and work and effort. And sometimes it's a whole lot of dirty work. But I think the tuck is like, all right, I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to just get after it. Nothing's getting in my way, not even my shirt. And so, just kind of stuck. And my teammates sometimes make fun of me for it, but you know what? I love it. So
I have a 14-year-old daughter, and then I also coach at Next Level Academy, which is a youth technical academy. It's not a club, it's a technical academy. We probably have right around 200 girls and boys too. And I'll say that too, boys too. But man, young players need to listen to this interview, or need to watch you and listen to you, because you can listen to a lot of players and right off the bat, like they're in it for themselves. They're in it to get some money. They're in it to get some fame, and you're in it to make the game better. And like, young players need to know that there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, but the one thing you control is how hard you work and how hard you want it. And if you keep bringing that to the table every day, then the results start to come. And to hear you speak on it, I mean, it's your 2nd year in the league, and you speak like it's your 10th year in the league on a team that's won championships over and over and over. So like, for me, it was just great to listen to you, because the player on the field I'm already drawn to. Like when you said, oh, my mom and dad can recognize me with the way, I would just tell them, just check the ball, because that's where I'll be. Because you're always around the ball. You're always in the play. You're always doing something. You're one of the few players when I watch that is playing offense and defense at the same time. Whether your team has the ball or your team doesn't have the ball, the players are playing on the offense, and then sometimes they're playing on the defense. You are setting up for an ability to get the ball out, but if we lose it, you're also in a position to win it back for us. And there's not a lot of players that are doing that in the country, and that's men and women. So I just think for Portland, I'm hoping they're doing it. I'm hoping the NWSL is doing it. I know me and Annie are going to do it, but that you need to be promoted for the next generation, like the Kristen Lilly helping you get to where you want to be by being a role model. We need to promote you as a role model for young players, because you have everything that it takes to make it in the world, not just in the game of soccer, but you just got to get up and grind and grind and grind. And some days it's not going to work out, but then some days it's going to be just the greatest part of the journey.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any more questions, man, but I'm excited to watch you play again.
I call your league games, and I noticed when I'm prepping for games, you're always the player in post game giving the interviews. Like Klingenberg's there sometimes, I see Dunn. It depends on the game, obviously. But even last year in your rookie season, Sam, PR put you in front of the camera, in front of the microphone, in front of the Zoom call, and you spoke so eloquently, and you had great answers, and you helped the media grow in learning the sport, but you also gave great answers to support your team and what we saw out on the pitch. What was the conversation to put you in these post-game press conferences in your rookie season? Was that something you wanted to do, or?
I mean, like there wasn't ever like a moment where they're like, whether you like it or not, here you go. Like I think, again, kind of coming from the family I come from, like we're not stranger to the English language, I guess you could say, like, or just like, I think just even growing up, my parents sent us to an amazing school called Master's School, where every class was in what was called like the Socratic method. So like Harkness style. So it was all conversation based, like every class, whether it was math, science, like everything was round table. So from the time I was 12, if there was a math problem on the board, I was talking with other 12-year-olds about like how to solve it, which sounds so ridiculous, but I credit like almost just the ability to like interact with people and speak and know when to shut up and know when to listen, like to really my experience there. And again, just kind of like my family background in journalism, the media, like learning how to deal with that and answer questions in the right way and not say too much, but not say too little at the same time. So I mean, I obviously felt honored that I was put in those positions, and I always want to represent the club well and represent my teammates well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's an honor to do it and to represent the team in that way. But yeah, it wasn't something I think that was like this big moment of, you're going to be doing this all the time or anything like that. But it's honestly like you could pick anyone on our team and get just like such an amazing result. I feel like we have so many women who just speak so eloquently, who represent the club so well, and just do such a great job when even like ask hard questions. A lot of our media experience in the last year has been tumultuous, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And just the way that I think the women on our team have answered really hard questions and dealt with difficult situations is, again, it's just like another example of the ways that I think we're more than just soccer players. And I think we're a team full of really well-rounded women and fighters for quality and the next generation, like you guys were alluding to. So, I love getting up there in front of the media, but I also know any single one of our players could go up and just do the same exact thing.
Yeah, but they chose you, and it kind of goes into what you were saying about playing the six, being a quarterback, being able to talk and converse and work with everyone. I feel like that fits your role and your personality so well. And then to put you up on the stand and have those conversations with the media, no matter what the question is. So before we let you go, Sam, I feel like I have to ask you the hardest question you'll ever be asked, because waffle shop or naked egg? I know when I left college, people started to trend to the naked egg, and I wasn't a fan of it. So which one? And I hope you say the right answer. And
I don't think you're going to like my answer because it's naked egg. No, it's better. It's better. I'm telling you.
Naked egg? What do you get? Tell me what you get and tell me why it's better.
I literally remember what it's called on the menu. It's called the whole farm. I'd get 2 eggs, scrambled. I'd get some different things in there like onions, cheddar cheese, just because I like to spice it up. Their tater tots are next level. Like it's the best breakfast in town. Waffle shop is more like just if you need grease. But naked egg is like genuinely good food. It's a little bit more of a drive, but the drive's pretty. So I would stake, that is like a pillar of my life, like a firm foundation that I will stand on, is that naked egg is better than waffle shop.
I knew you were going to say it because once I left, I saw everyone started posting on their stories naked egg instead of how do you say no to the sliced and grilled blueberry muffin? That is like the best part of Penn State. How do you say no to the home fries? No?
I went before. Honestly, it just,
all right.
I don't know. It wasn't for me. But you know what? Like I felt like there were different waffle shops that were like better than other waffle shops too. Like the one on Atherton like wasn't as good as the one near the golf course, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like there were all sorts of different like chefs in the kitchen. I'm like, which one do we go to? I don't know.
Yeah. One time we showed up to Haluba to train early in the morning and football was there. So we weren't able to train. I think there was a mix up with the schedule. So anywho, we went to the waffle shop and coach paid for us. So it was the best day of training ever.
There you go.
I'm a huge waffle shop fan, but I respect the naked egg answer. But yeah. Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so great to get to know you and learn a little bit more about your journey. Best of luck this weekend. You're traveling cross country to North Carolina, Scotty's backyard. So good luck.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, that was an incredible interview. And I mean, moms, dads, young players, boys and girls, if you need a role model, you have one. I mean, what a class act. I mean, I'm so glad we got to interview her, got to know her a little bit more about in depth of who she is and how she goes about her business and kind of understand why she is such a great player on the field. What a great interview. What a great player. What a class act all the way around.
Class act. Absolutely. I agree. I love her demeanor and at this age and stage in her career where she's only in her second professional season, how she talks, great role model, like you said. And I loved hearing about her transition from the 10 role to a 6 role. I think that was such a cool aspect of her game and something that you see in her personality that she can take that head on and make that switch so well. So such a great interview. So glad we got to talk with Sam. We're going to talk more about Sam because this past weekend, the Portland Thorns played Angel City. It was a 3-3 tie, a fantastic game. I mean, the goalkeeper for the Thorns ended up scoring the tying goal. off a set piece from Sam Coffey. But the question that we posed last week was, who would win this game when it's a Julie Ertz versus Sam Coffey match? So Ertz had a header goal off a set piece, but she also fouled in the box, which was a PK goal for Portland Thorns. Sam Coffey takes the corner kick for Bella Bixby that turns into a goal. But for you, Scotty, who won that matchup, and also what did you see from both sides?
Yeah, as a neutral, it was a great game. 3-3, 6 goals total. I mean, phenomenal, great soccer all the way around on both sides. I think when you look at the league, I think Portland is the top, is the best team. They're head and shoulders, not head and shoulders, but they're the class of the whole group. For me, I know where LA is in the standings, but they're a dangerous team. I think they're a very, very good team. I actually have in my first top 3 after this week, and I only know they only played 52 minutes, but the Courage looked like a different team this weekend. They were moving the ball around. So I have Portland, LA, Courage, and then OL Reign. And to be honest, it's not really fair to OL Reign only because they haven't had Lavelle for the last couple games, so we're seeing a hybrid version of them. But when I look at this LA and Portland game, I don't necessarily think either one of them won a battle or either one of them lost a battle. We just got to see 2 different styles of playing the 6 role. I think Ertz plays with a little bit more risk, a little bit more, I don't know, not necessarily risk, but she steps higher up. Whereas, as you can hear in Sam's interview, she does what's necessary for the team to win. She puts certain accolades or certain styles of play of her own aside so that the team can function at its best and at its whole. And I think when you watch the game, you can see Ertz kind of, through her motions and her actions, pushes that team along, whereas Coffey allows for the team to run super fluid. Again, if it's me and I'm looking at picking a player between the two of them, I'm taking Coffey. And listen, that interview didn't hurt one single bit. I mean, she's intelligent. She's smart. She is a player that is continually searching to better her game. She is constantly trying to hone her craft and become the best version of herself. And hopefully that's great for the game. But at the end of the day, she's really doing it on terms of, this is the path I have to take in order to become great for the game, not necessarily for herself. So I thought it was a really good game. I thought we saw 2 different styles of playing the 6. And to be honest, when I was done watching the game, I thought, well, if I'm the national team, I have my 2 6s. I have 2 6s that can help me win, and they can help me win in 2 different styles, and both are super effective. I thought that you can tell that Coffey's a leader. She's a quiet leader, whereas Ertz is more of a leader that does things through voice, through I don't want to say anger, but she has got a lot of aggressiveness, whereas Coffey's just even keel the whole game. And you can see, when you really dive into watching her, you can see parts of her 10 and her ability as a 10 sneak out, get her out of trouble, make plays, start the play. She is, if we were a hockey league, she'd have tons of second assists because she gets plays started and then the play is completed by the last assist and the last run. But I thought it was a phenomenal game on both ends of it, and just to watch the battles go on. And I'll also say, when I watched the game, and I know there's goals and there's yellow cards, but Coffey didn't get subbed out. And that is a huge thing for me as a coach, looking at teams like, who can I not take off this field? And I feel like Coffey's the first one on the list to go in, and she's the one that if I can do everything I possibly can, I don't want her to come out of this game.
We talked about it yesterday before we even interviewed Sam, and I think you might even mention it in the interview, as we talked about if you were starting up a team, who would be the player you would want on your team to help build this expansion team. And we both agreed Sam Coffey would be a great choice just because of how she speaks, who she is, but also what she performs on the field. And both Ertz and Sam Coffey are the 2 best American 6s. In the league, you have Denise O'Sullivan, but obviously she plays for Ireland, so she's not a pick for the U.S. women's national team. But I think she's in that argument if we're talking about 6s in the NWSL. But yes, I agree. You have your pick in Sam Coffey, Julie Ertz. They bring different aspects. And for Sam Coffey, she brings that set piece aspect in a different way that Julie Ertz brings. Julie Ertz will be in the mix. She'll get her head on it. She'll score it. But Sam Coffey, in some ways, is even harder because there's less players in the league and just in general who can provide the service that Sam Coffey can. Every single time she puts that ball in the six, it's exactly where it needs to be for a teammate to get ahead on it. Shoot, if your goalkeeper can score off your set piece, you're doing something right. So I think Sam Coffey, Julie Ertz bring different aspects, and Ertz in the game against Portland looked a little bit more like an 8. Like you said, Scotty, she's all over the pitch. She wants to be involved. And there was aspects of the game where I thought she was just a little too reactive. There was a ball that was played into the box. She went to slide tackle, but last second she pulled up because she knew she would have clipped the player's ankles and it would have been another PK kick. And then the one where she got the yellow card, it was a PK kick. Sagita scores it for Portland. She came in when her center back or whoever the teammate was in front of behind the play could have easily stepped in and won the ball, but Ertz coming in behind. Just the small details where she wants to be everywhere at once, and I get it. She is such a good player and she's excited. She wants to win the ball. She wants to be a big part of her team. But there were moments where she doesn't need to be involved. And even like what Sam said, like when she was talking about, she knows when to start talking, when to stop talking, when's her place to say something. It shows on the field as well. She knows her role is when she needs to step in, when she knows she can trust her teammate for a moment. And for Ertz, she's different. I think she's as talented, but I think there's parts of Ertz's game that as league games go on, she'll get better. But right now in that match against Angel City, there were just aspects where they didn't really need her to do some of the things that she did, and she may maybe have hurt her team, but nothing major. Obviously, the PK kick was kind of major, though.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When you look at Ertz, when you look at both of them, I think you look at both of them and you're like, okay, here's two fearless players. 100. There's no fear for them on the field.
Sure,
They'll do what it takes. But Ertz, and I think part of it is because she's had a layoff, and now she's also super excited to be back. You can kind of see her adrenaline both games so far. She's just been really amped up to play. But Ertz, and it's always been her career, is she's a little reckless at times. She gets away with it because she's such a good player and she's so athletic. But the league in 2 years or whatever, how many years it's been since she hasn't played, and not just the league, but the quality of soccer has really grown on the women's side. So she's coming back playing against players who are a little bit more inept to have better quality than what she was used to when she finished or had stopped playing there for a while. So when I look at the two of them, Ertz is a little bit reckless. And there are games where we are going to need some recklessness. And there's going to be a game where we don't need any recklessness. And that's when I said, like, when I watched this game, I said to myself, man, we have the best of both worlds. And depending how World Cups go, because you really can't guess the flow of it, how you're going to do in your group stages and getting out, you could have both of them on the field and play Ertz as an 8. And you could have Coffey as 6, and you have Lavelle as a 10 or Haran as a 10. You can give rest to players. I just think, like, when I watch these two 6s like that right now in the world, and we've discussed it earlier, the 6 is the position you need to fill to win, to be a championship team. And we have 2 of them. And that's no knock on Sullivan in Washington. I just think these two are surpassed her in their ability. Sullivan's a great player. When Ertz retires, Sullivan can step back in a sense. Like, we have some really good 6s, but the way those two perform, and they went into the game, and I would think they had to know this is a big matchup, and neither one of them made it personal. They just kind of played their game and how they felt was going to best suit their team in order to win. Ertz being a little bit more reckless, and the formation kind of flows with her. Coffey being much more disciplined and, I don't want to say intelligent, but being super smart and always in the right spot so that the flow of the game could go its way, not like it was determined by Coffey. Coffey just actually was the driver, basically, and made sure the car was steered in the right direction, whereas Ertz a lot of times is the engine that makes the car go.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think that's because both of these players know what their team needs from them. Coffey knows that Portland has a lot of great playmakers and people who she just needs to facilitate the movement, the balls in behind for them to score, for them to create the attack. For Julie Ertz and Angel City, they need a little bit more of an aggression from Julie Ertz. Both these players know what they need for their team. They weren't playing for themselves in that match, they have to know that Vlatko Andonovski's watching that game. They played for what their team needed, and that should even stand out to Vlatko Andonovski. These are both selfless players that you bring them into the national team, you know you're going to get team players. And I agree. I'd love to see them on the pitch together. I think because Julie Ertz plays more attacking minded, that they can play together. And then you get Lindsay Horan on the pitch, Rose Lavelle, whoever in that midfield, honestly, could really help the national team when it comes to them. We need them to be more aggressive. We need to be them to be on the front foot. Julie Ertz, Sam Coffey, whoever else you want in that mix can provide that.
I will say this, and it's a little off topic, but not really. The recent games that I've watched, and I'm a huge fan of hers, but Alana Cook has been a little sloppy, a little lackadaisical, almost like she thinks she's so good and so athletic that she can get away with almost anything. And it's been costing her in her games. A couple times this weekend against Louisville, she got clipped with the ball in possession. She was the last defender. So I feel like if you have Coffey in front of her, or even if it's not Alana Cook, but it gives you much more freedom in the back and you just relax. Like Portland looks so relaxed on the field. Doesn't matter who's coming in, when they're coming in. They're just Weaver is playing at an exceptional rate and a level right now. And I think that's part of because she knows I'm going to get services. I'm going to get balls coming out of the middle. Coffey's going to get the ball. She's going to spread it. She's going to get it to the right people to get it to me. And they're just playing with a little bit of freedom, but also relaxation that allows them to be at their best. And I have a huge feeling that that's because Coffey sits in that role and just calms the whole ship, makes everybody say, go do your stuff. I'm here. We're all going to take care of each other. And I think it's the reason Portland, and granted, they've been good before Coffey was there, but this Portland team right now, like when I turned on the TV and it said Sophia Smith's not playing, and that's understandable. I think that was a good move by the coaching staff. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that I wasn't going to get to watch Sophia Smith. I was like, well, we got Coffey, we got Sinclair, we're going to see Thompson, we're going to see Ertz. It was like, it's okay that we're not going to see her, and we'll probably see her in the second half, and maybe she'll do something, exceptional that we'll get to watch. But usually I turn the TV on and like the Stars not playing, you're like, oh man, like I wasn't worried about that because of this awesome duel we were about to see in the midfield and these two great teams trying to impose their will on each other. And the game kind of came down to that. And I think 3-3 was a fair result. And like we say, NWSL, you can't sleep on it, man. Just craziest things. Goalies with back heels. I mean, I'm not a goalie with a header or anything. It's like a back heel. So fantastic game.
I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh no, oh no in a good way. What is going to be the news? Because I'm on Pacific time right now. So I'm about 3 hours behind what the normal news drop is on the East Coast. What am I waking up to? And it's always something good. It's exciting. It's good for the league. It's good for publicity. One more thing before we move on to MLS, because you brought up Alana Cook and prepping for the interview with Sam Coffey. I was watching one of her interviews US Soccer did with her and Naomi Girma, and it was a get to know you interview. And they had asked her, what is a player that you're excited to play with, nervous to play with? I apologize, I don't remember the question exactly, but she said Becky Sauerbond playing in the center back role behind her. She doesn't want to mess up because she doesn't want to put her center back in any compromisable position. She wants to make sure that she keeps the ball and she allows her center backs just to have to sit back there. That spoke volumes to what you're saying about Alana Cook and just how she knows and understands how her position is important to the players, not only in front of her and to her left and right, but also the players behind her. So really good interview. It's on US Soccer, her and Naomi Girma with the national team. Heading over to MLS news. NWSL has a lot of excitement happening. We've seen two 15-year-olds play in league games this season. We've seen coaching changes, and then the team do a whole 180 and get a handful of wins and climb the table. We've seen goals. We've seen ownership speaking out. We've seen Eli Manning, Natalie Portman's at almost every single home game for Angel City. For MLS, sometimes it seems that week in and week out, there's not as much excitement. There's not as much change. There's not as much movement where from a media standpoint, we can get behind some of these teams. The score lines are pretty consistent. We can kind of guess what's going to happen in matches. So for you, Scotty, what do you think MLS can do, whether it's the team, the leagues, just to judge things up, to get some excitement? And not that MLS isn't exciting, because it is a great league and we see a lot of great matches and people investing. But what are some extra steps you could see them take to kind of do some of the things that we've seen in NWSL week in and week out?
Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes when I watch the MLS and I go through the season, it reminds me of almost like a bad soap opera. like if I miss a week or 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. It picks up right where I left off anyway. So like when I watch games like Miami won after losing 6 in a row. St. Louis, okay, they have a rough little game here. They lose to Portland, but Portland's back. Like, you know who the good teams are. You know who the bad teams are. The bad teams are going to squeak a win here and there. There's never any like big change or anything drastic that happens in the league. And whereas when we watch the NWSL, it's, man, they're going for it. It's like they every game is super important to them. They always speak up. Houston and Carolina gets a big rain delay, and it's happened in. But, you know, like usually you just keep your mouth quiet. You know, we were there for 3 hours extra time. But no, the coaching staff of Carolina, they weren't saying they didn't want to play, but like either we got an hour, we're going to play, or we're not going to play. Don't make us sit in here for 3 hours. It's not healthy. It's not. But they speak up about it. So there's something to talk about. They're like trying to make change. When we watch the MLS, to me, it's just like, I know Seattle's going to be in the hunt of it. I know LAFC is going to be in the hunt of it. But, like, that's about all we know. And then these teams that sit in the middle. So, for me, it almost seems like the league is very complacent, the MLS. And we don't get at that in the NWSA. So, one of the things I thought, and I know it's not – I know there's sponsorship money and how it works and everything. But when I watch the EPL, every game matters. And it doesn't matter if – let's take Man City out because they beat everybody. It doesn't matter if the top team's playing the bottom team. It's a good game because there's promotion and relegation. And I think that would be a huge thing in this country. And not only just for the MLS, but for our national team. It gives these players the urgency of every game, every training, everything matters. And sometimes I watch the MLS and it's just like, well, if I'm not here, I'll be in Montreal. If I'm not there, I'll be in Columbus. Like it's just a turn. They just everyone gets a turn somewhere. The coaching staff's like, Kansas City is 0-3 after going to the championship with a coach who was runner-up for Coach of the Year. And in 3 games this year, they have gotten rid of him. And their team now is on a 3-game winning streak. So, like, for me, it's like they don't mess around in the NWSL. They're keeping it going. They're keeping the flow. They're keeping the passion going. Whereas the MLS, to me, gets real stagnant in what they're delivering to us. And that's hard for us as fans. Like, if you have a team, I want to see changes. I want to see picks. I want to see teams move. We just went through and the window closed, and like the only trading I could really see was like subs for subs. Like why do I already had a sub? Why do I need a sub to come into my team? Like no top players were getting bought by other teams and trying to get, you know, Tottenham was doing everything they could this year not to have Harry Kane go to Man City. Like there needs to be change. There needs to be this something to go to get us like amped up for each week. And the MLS just seems like people are tuning in. We've got enough fans. The money's coming. Don't rock the boat. Whereas I think like if they did rock the boat, it would be that much more of an exciting league. So for me, like promotion and relegation, I think is something that would need to be looked at. And I understand that there's the markets of each city, but the soccer fans love their soccer. And if I had a chance to move up and be part of the big boys and stay part of the big boys, I think that would change how passionate we were as soccer fans for the game and for the league. And it would increase the ability of the players because you go down, contracts are a little bit less. You're not going to be seen on TV as much. You're harder to get to your next team. So there's something more than just the league title to be fighting for.
I agree. And I also think it puts, if you were to do with MLS, there'll be fewer teams at the top let's say in the top league. So it'll be more exciting. Like we see in NWSL, the matchups are a little bit more exciting because you see them more than once. And there's a lot more changing and movement like amongst the league. So it would just be fun to see, okay, at this point of the season, Portland is here. Are they going to get relegated? Or if they get this win, and then the players know they have to get this win because they'll get paid more. We all know sports run on money and people want to get paid for what they do. So I agree with that. I also think with ownership, Giannis Antetokounmpo invested in Nashville SC. He's a Milwaukee Bucks player. And this week he went viral because he spoke about how he felt his team didn't fail after they fell out of the playoffs, the NBA playoffs. There's something to build on there for Nashville to come in and have Giannis speak about that. Or they have Reese Witherspoon, who she's got the production company. She's a huge movie star. She's well known in Nashville. She has the dress line. There's so much that some of their owners and some of these teams are doing why not bring them in and give them more of a voice and have them speak to some of the fans who maybe they don't have? We spoke about it kind of when we started this podcast, how Hailey Bieber could come in and make a huge statement. At this point, Sophia Richie, after her wedding and her being the next it girl and her husband being a huge part of the music industry, they could make a huge statement in MLS. So going after people who we know that make a huge statement in other like areas of pop culture, so to speak, could be huge. And we look at the news this week. JJ and Kalia Watt invested in Burnley FC. JJ Watt played in the NFL. Kalia Watt played in the NWSL. We don't know if her career is over, if she's decided to stop playing after having a baby boy, but why aren't they investing in an MLS team or an NWSL team if Kalia is done playing? Why are they going overseas? That's a great opportunity for JJ he plays American football. Invest in American football here in the States and seeing how that's just I feel like a missed opportunity that MLS could have somebody like JJ Watt, who has such a big audience, bring in his football fans. So I think another thing MLS could do just to judge up the excitement is get their owners more invested in speaking out and doing fun and silly things that grab people's attention.
I agree. I don't know why. You're right. Why are they in England? Why is LeBron with Liverpool? There are, we have Mahomes. There are athletes and people that are invested here in the United States. But the other thing is, and I'm pretty sure it was Kobe Bryant, he used to always bring his daughter around champions because he wanted to see what they acted like and how they dealt with things. So he would bring his daughters around like the women's national team, ex-pro basketball players. So I think if we got owners that were great at what they did, they bring in a different lineage of how to take care of their business. Granted, they might not know anything about soccer on the field, but they know, and their egos and their ambition and their drive, that's what would stir these teams into to be better at what they're doing. Like, just when I watch the NWSL, it seems like these women are really invested into the game and becoming great every day, day in and day out. When I watch the MLS players, it's not what I see. Maybe it's because there's only 12 teams. Maybe because there's, and in FIFA rules, you can only have 20 teams in your top league. Well, we have a different rule here in the US. We're getting into the 30s now with our teams. So you're right. Maybe do we have too many teams? Is the discrepancy too big from top to bottom, which makes games boring? Because listen, Orlando goes in and wins 3-1 this weekend. And, before the week, they hadn't had a win. They weren't getting goals. Like, you never know on the NWSL side because there's a little bit more parity in the play in the teams. And there isn't that same parity in the MLS. And part of that is, again, like I say, the status quo is just like, this is good enough. I'm part of it. Like, bring in new people, bring in better people, bring in people that are going to push the envelope, get us thinking outside the box. It'll help us on the field. It'll help us off the field.
I don't think it just has to be former athletes. I was thinking, I know you don't, Scotty. Do you watch The Real Housewives of New York? Probably not. I'll answer that question for you.
Not.
There's this woman, her name is Bethany Frankel, and she used to be on the show, and she's huge. She's got this huge personality, but she used the show as the platform for growing her business, and it's called Skinny Girl, and she's gotten to the point where she is so successful as a businesswoman now, but she used Real Housewives as her stepping stone, got there. Now she's on Shark Tank. She's friends with Mark Cuban. She's doing amazing things in the business world. I think she would be a huge investment in either the Red Bulls or NYFC. Just having her there, showing that if you take what you have, you can build so much off of it. And she's obviously not an athlete, and I know she's controversial in the pop culture world, but people like that who take what they have and they can build such an empire off of the small things that they get just shows that that drive, that work ethic
drive
that we need.
They have a different drive. That great people that are great at what they do just have a different drive. And I agree. It doesn't matter, athlete, non-athlete, just really highly successful people that have this drive that they have behind them that forces them to be so good and their work ethic and everything. I think these are people that you need to get into this arena to help us push this envelope along. Like MLS, you've been here for a long time and it's great and we've made tons of strides. NWSL, but like we can't be happy with where we are. We have to let's go. How good can we become? 60,000 at Arsenal this weekend,
right?
Or this week with the Champions
Women.
League game. I mean, just amazing, and a great soccer and a great game. And it's like, we should be 60,000 should be the norm, not 20,000. Not, it's exciting to have 30,000 in a sellout in LA, but like, let's do it everywhere, every stadium, every city, every team, and then put the product on the field. And I think, you're playing in front of that many people. You don't want to let those fans down. And I think that's part of what we need to get soccer in the U.S. to keep going in the right direction, because we've got something started and we can't just say this is good enough. We have to say that there's more to it. There's better ways. Let's learn. Let's learn from what we can see in Europe. Let's learn from businesses that maybe not soccer businesses, but soccer is a business. Can we take and intertwine and work this so that we come up with such an unbelievable product that everybody wants to be a part of it? Every fan, every player wants to be a part of making it great.
The final thing that we were thinking could zhuzh up MLS is the biggest news really right now is FC Cincinnati's forward Brenner has been transferred to Serie A for a reportedly $10 million fee. He doesn't leave until July, so he has 10 more matches until his last match, July 1st. However, we didn't see him in the last game for FC Cincinnati. Who knows if we'll see him since. Bring in more stars. That's $10 million. Go and get somebody in Premier League. It doesn't even have to be, it could, obviously you want the first division of Premier League, but bring in someone who can bring that excitement, that new energy, that fresh energy to come into MLS and pitch it to them, and this is your turn. All eyes are going to be on you. How can you make this exciting? How can you make this team yours? And also social media wise, marketing wise, how can you change things up? Bringing in stars will elevate, but continuously bringing in those stars and changing things up more than once a season.
Yeah, we can't just have players going out and say, look at what we did, look at what we created. We need to have people that want to come here and play, and not, and as a Liverpool fan, it was tough, not Steven Gerrard at the end of his career. Not David Beckham wasn't necessarily at the end, but you could tell it was starting to be winding down and he was making career path decisions. We need players that are still hungry and still thriving to be MLS, and then maybe move on from MLS, but it needs to be a destination, not a place where old players come to die and young players are just starting their careers. We need these players in the prime of their game, the prime of their career, the prime ages, to get them in there and then say, come on, you think it's an easy league? Take it over. Destroy it. It's a hard league. It's a different league. It's a different type of league. So it's not every player can come in here and play. Not every player can come in here and be successful. So who are these players? Who's doing the scouting that we can bring in players, 4 or 5 players every year? St. Louis did a good job. They brought in some really good foreigners. The thing that hurt St. Louis is they were an expansion team. So it's like, well, they just put a team together. Now is St. Louis going to continually do this year in and year out? Take old players, move them out. New players, move them in. And I think when you look at Man City, that's what they're really good at. He's constantly bringing in players, flushing players out. System change, styles change, players go, new players come. Liverpool, we were stagnant. We stayed with the same team over and over and over. And now we're fighting for a European spot this year because we didn't make those changes and constantly keep it fresh and keep different voices in the locker room and different styles of play, which allows players to be, you want to learn, you want to get better. So always learning new styles and new players and new formations, it keeps us interested as players. So that has to be happening. And you're right. We can't do it once a year, Brenner leaving. And now what? Are we going to see him the next 10 games? Or is he scared to get hurt and he doesn't want to ruin his contract going to Udinese in Italy? So he needs to still get on the field and play for Cincinnati and play like he's playing for his last game he might ever play. We need that desire. The MLS helped him get seen so that he could go here. Now keep putting the MLS on the map before you leave. So players want to come in. And I think it's a good thing for Cincinnati because it makes me want to say, if I could play somewhere, maybe Cincinnati, because they will sell me if something comes along. They will get me to if there's a better option, then they're allowing me to go. And that's a player, for me as a player, then I'll give everything to that club as long as I know that they have my best interests in their thoughts also. If they want my best for them, then they have to give me their best for me at the same time.
MLS has a lot of potential, and we've seen what they're doing with the Apple deal and how everything's on Apple, which I think was a huge positive move because all the games are on one place. There's a place to go see your team and all the things they're doing off the field with the coverage of that, the highlights. But like you said, the movement and these individual teams can take it upon themselves to bring in new players, let players go, bring in new players, develop players. Now with MLS Next Pro, there's an opportunity to build players. There's a lot of good that MLS is doing. We're just bringing a few extra details that maybe MLS can do better to bring themselves to a higher place and bring in some superstars. The conversation was around Messi for a long time, is kind of still around Messi coming to MLS. That needs to happen, or it doesn't need to happen, and we need to move on to the next conversation and who is the next player coming in. One last positive is Wrexham is coming in July to Los Angeles to play Next Pro's LA Galaxy 2. I'm glad they're not playing an MLS full team. I'm glad it is the second division team because that just shows that those two teams are maybe closer together when it comes to talent, and it's more of an equal playing field. That's a huge positive. Americans are obsessed with this Wrexham FC movement and what Ryan Reynolds is doing over there. MLS needs to be a part of it, and it is a good move, and I like it. I think it'll be a fun game.
Yeah, and Ryan Reynolds is awesome. So, but again, we were super excited also because they got promoted. Promotion.
Right.
That promotion relegation is like, I played in
Exactly.
France, and it was every practice mattered. Every game mattered. Like, it was the championship. And like, it was one of my favorite couple years of playing was just how intense the moments were, not just for you as the player, but the fans. Like, everyone is so invested in every single game because every single game matters. It's not like, oh, it's the playoffs, totally different time of year. There is no playoffs. It's like you either get it done or you don't get it done. And when we'll see at the end of this EPL, these teams that are going to get promoted, relegated, these fans are going to be in tears, like old, young, men, women, like they're going to be in tears. Players are going to be in tears because they know what it means to the city, to the fan base, to the future of the club. And I think that we don't have that here in America. And I feel like if we did, it would be that much better of a game on the field.
I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see how MLS continues to grow along with NWSL. That's why we're here, Scotty, right? We want to see soccer in the States continue to grow, and we want to hold them to that standard that we know that we can hold them to in America because there are so many high ceilings. To our Yellow Penny Award, I'll go first. According to World Soccer Talk, FIFA warns Women's World Cup won't be televised in Europe. And I quote, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has threatened to ban the upcoming Women's World Cup from certain countries in Europe. Speaking at the World Trade Organization headquarters, he criticized European broadcasting companies over the bids for the tournament. According to the soccer administrator, networks in France, Italy, Germany, and Spain, and the UK have undervalued the tournament's broadcasting worth. Of course, here in the United States, we will be watching the World Cup on Fox. But those are huge countries. I mean, you name France, Italy, Germany, Spain, UK. In Europe, women's soccer in Spain, well, we see 60,000. And in the UK, obviously, with Arsenal, 60,000 attend that game. Women's soccer is growing. We can't ban because we're not getting the money that we want from some of these European broadcasting companies. That is a yellow penny to the FIFA president if this goes through.
It's a yellow flag to
Yeah.
officials that can take care of that. I remember, I think it was the Brazilian World Cup where everybody got in trouble. Traffic, which is basically their huge network of communication, whether it's media, news outlets, and everything. And they put a huge bid in and got. But to me, it sounds like he's just asking for more money for himself. And the only people that are going to get hurt are the fans, and they had nothing to do with it. What do you mean I'm not going to watch my team and watch these countries play and these women play this game of soccer that, you know, the last World Cup was so incredible and so passionate and brought so many. I was watching games where people don't even watch soccer. It was so intense, and we're gonna have the same thing on the women's side, and he's gonna not let the TVs get it because they didn't give him a good enough value of how much they're gonna spend to him. I'd investigate that if I could.
Absolutely. I don't foresee this going through, especially because they are such big countries in Europe and how big of a soccer fan these countries are. And it's even not even just the fans. You think about the families and the spouses and whoever is close with these players who can't afford to go to Australia, New Zealand, obviously, because it's so far away. Their other alternative is to watch it here in America. And honestly, Scotty, I'd be interested to see like what streaming services might take advantage if
Right.
these broadcasting networks don't want to take it. Could Amazon come in? Could Hulu? I mean, who else could we think of? There's so many opportunities for these streaming services to step in to provide that for them. And we have seen it happen. I mean, look at what Apple did with MLS. So
Right.
who knows, we'll step in. It could be Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. It's soccer. Sometimes it never ceases to amaze me.
How could
People,
we go from Arsenal, 60,000 fans, and then we've got the FIFA president coming in and being like, I don't think you'll be able to see your players in the World Cup this year. Yellow
right.
penny, rest
Yeah,
of the season.
I agree with it. So mine's a tough one because I was so excited for them last week, and then this kind of happened. So mine is U.S. Soccer again. I'm sorry, I want U.S. Soccer to do. We go and hire our sporting director. It's a great move. He's saying all the right things. It looks like he's going to really start diving into the youth and building something from its foundation up. So I'm super excited. And we got the World Cup coming. He's saying we want to be not just good, we want to be successful on our home turf. That's great. All the stuff coming out. But last week or 2 weeks ago, we put a bid in for the Women's World Cup. Now we're hosting this one, us, Canada, and Mexico. The three teams here in CONCACAF soil. It's great. So we put our bid in, but we only put a double bid in with us in Mexico and never contacted Canada. So I give U.S. Soccer my yellow penny. That's just not how you do business. I don't care if you're saying, well, you had it 8 years ago. And no, we just did something together. Let's see if we can do it together. And I can't use the 8 years ago against Canada because they broke records. They broke attendance records. They broke viewing records. Canada has done it. They've done it right. They can help us learn how to do it. They're going to help us do it in the next Men's World Cup. So for me, I don't understand whether it's business or just a friendship, not to contact Canada and say, hey, we're putting in a bid for the women's. Not sure if you really want to be a part of it, or we're not sure if you would help us or hurt us, but not to contact them at all. To me, that's just not how you conduct yourself these days, in my opinion. So I give the U.S. Soccer my yellow jerseys for not even it's just a phone call. It's just a phone call to Canada.
I agree. I mean, especially because we're coming off the Men's World Cup in 2026, where it is Canada, the States, and Mexico. It's obvious that you want to continue to build that relationship, that business relationship with Canada. And Canada's been in the news a lot lately. They want to build the next women's league up in Canada. So they're trying to build what they're doing. Why wouldn't the States and Mexico have a conversation and then say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And Canada has so much to offer. It's literally right there. People can drive from the States to Canada to Mexico. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you really touched on everything in that.
It's the
I just don't
safest of the three
understand.
places.
I'd be curious too, do you think Matt Crocker had a say? I mean, he was literally just hired.
I
And
don't
then the
think
news
Crocker. I
came
think
out.
it actually happened right before
Right.
Crocker was hired. I'm pretty sure they had put their bid in maybe a day or 2 days before. So I mean, it's just. But I wouldn't, even if he was just signed on, I don't think it's really his call on it. Did we fire everybody that did the other two deals? Doesn't anyone think hey, don't you think we should call Canada? We just did something with them. And I mean, I think the way Canada's men and women's side and Mexico's men and women's side, that competition and that between the three countries is what we need to continue to push ourselves forward, as Mexico's women's getting much better. Mexico's men's are getting better. We have gotten, I think, better than the Mexican men's team. The Canadian team, I think, is a little better than us right now. The women's team is just below us. I mean, I think these three countries could really help each other continue to perform at a real high level. And you can read all of Canada's quotes, and they're kind of nice about it. But at the end of each one of their interviews, they give all the stats of everything they've ever held and how well it does in Canada. So it was a little throwback in our face. Here, you didn't ask us to do it, but here's our attendance record for this World Cup. Here's our this for this tournament we hosted. So you could tell they're a little upset. They're saying everything politically correct. I just thought it was a real bad move. Like, we're always going to be neighbors. We're always going to need each other. Like, don't leave somebody out of something. And now when Canada does something, the next one, are they going to invite us or are they not going to invite us? And it's just, I think it was just a real bad, it would give me a bad taste in my mouth if I was Canada working with us or Mexico, to be honest.
Canadians are so nice too. They let the United States and Mexico off a little too easy. But then you have so many players in NWSL and MLS who are Canadian and play here in the States. Obviously, MLS has teams up in Canada. So we kind of intermix a lot. It seems just like an obvious. Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, I'm waiting for somebody to come up and like, well, I broke up with his boyfriend. It's like, it's almost like a high school thing. It's like, you just got to call. Even if you don't want to do it with them, you need to call and say, hey, look, we're not doing it with you this time only because you had it 8 years ago and we think that might hurt us. And that's just the way we feel about it. And, like, no hard feelings. That's why, but like, to not call and not to give them any chance to say yes or no to it, it just doesn't make any sense to me the way they handled it.
Canada being involved too would help bring in more money for the World Cup. There'd be more people involved in making this a great World Cup here. I don't even see, other than like someone breaking up with someone's high school boyfriend, I don't see a reason like why they would leave Canada out of the conversation. But here we are. Here we are.
Yeah.
All right.
Every time we take one step forward, 3 steps back. It drives me bananas.
I know. But one day we'll be on this and we will be super pumped about hopefully the movement of everything.
One day we'll win the World Cup on the men's side, and we can do a show and say we were a huge part of that because we didn't let them slide.
Yes. Exactly. We will see the U.S. win a World Cup. Hopefully we'll see the women win another World Cup this summer. So much exciting news to continue to keep your eyes on. NWSL has some great matchups this weekend. There was one on the docket. What was it?
Well, I'm liking the Carolina-Portland game.
I'm liking that one, but okay,
because
say
I
why
get
you're
to see
liking
O'Sullivan versus Coffey. I mean,
yes.
And again, for Vlatko, I mean, come on, you're getting like so many games in a row where you can really get a taste of what Coffey's all about. I mean, I'm going to continue to push her, and if she doesn't make the World Cup squad, I'm going to continue to push her after that too, because when I watch her on the field, it's just something really special that we don't realize. I think it was Cruyff that said soccer is simple, but it's difficult to play simple. And that's what Coffey does. So I think sometimes we miss her greatness because she makes it look so easy. Whereas we know the energy and the effort that Ertz is putting into it, but Coffey, sometimes it just makes it look like it's so easy for her that, oh, well, it must not have been a hard play. Whereas there's only one player in the world that could do that play, and it was her. So that's just I'm gonna keep pushing forward for her.
Well, the other one that I had my eyes on was the Sunday evening game, Angel City, Kansas City Current. Kansas City having a great second half against Gotham, putting in 2 goals. They lost their head coach a few weeks ago, and now it seems like they've started to turn a corner, and they haven't returned every injured player back, but Dabinia looks really good with Kaiser, with Mace. Michelle Cooper had a great assist with those crosses coming inside. I feel like she's starting to come into her own in the NWSL. And then, of course, Angel City and what we saw them do. And right now, Angel City's sitting 9th place. They're not even in playoff contention. So they're going to start looking for those 3 points. They're going to want to start getting wins. I think that'll be an exciting match to watch. But honestly, NWSL keeps you on your toes.
When I watch the 2 leagues, like we're watching the MLS, and they're 10 games into the season, 9 games into their season, and they're starting to find their rhythm in the final third. They're starting. The NWSL, it is the 4th game, and these teams, Kansas City is figuring themselves out. That's like a brand new team, basically. They just, the way they go about their business in the NWSL, man, they're just so professional about how they conduct themselves. Like, we're 3 games in, and teams are starting to hit this stride of how they're going to play, who they're going to become. Like I said, Carolina, I was super impressed. Nejas takes a book out of Pep's book, maybe Arteta, maybe Klopp, and he's moved his outside back into the midfield. He's letting Kiraline kind of run, but like they're understanding, coaches are understanding the quality they have, the personnel they have, and they're making their adjustments. And it's not taking them 10 games. It's taking them 3 games, 4 games. And I think we talked about it last week. This Challenge Cup is a really beneficial thing. It might have seemed something crazy in the beginning. People might have complained that it's during the season, but I think it's turning out to be a blessing in disguise because we get to fine tune things, work on things. I get to go through a warm-up fitness and then sit and be on the bench as a starter and watch younger players and cheer for them and make them feel like we need you to win this game. I think it's a really good thing for these teams to really start hitting their stride a lot earlier than these MLS teams do.
And these NWSL players are not sitting back in these challenge games. A, they want to win $1 million. And B, they want to continue to push why they should be in the starting 11 and continue to be a part of these teams. Because as we've seen in NWSL, and like you mentioned, these coaches aren't scared to change things up and try players in different positions based off of what they see in a Challenge Cup game. So that's what makes NWSL exciting. Obviously, MLS has matches this weekend. We're continuing to follow the storylines there. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter at SFTP Pod. I don't think I'm missing anything else. So we will see you back here next Wednesday.
Have a great week.